Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our session on unlocking systemic innovations for a sustainable bioeconomy. Yeah, so again, good afternoon to you. We are very glad you're here and you will join our discussion on those topical issues, and also that you haven't sneaked off yet to the much bigger trade fair next door with more snacks. My name is Sophia Lüttringhaus and I will be moderating today's session. I'm an agricultural economist working on agricultural research for development and also agro-biodiversity. I do this at the ATB, the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy, and also with my own consultancy firm, Earth Yield Advisories. So, it's my pleasure to welcome you again to this very interesting session. This year's GFFA theme is Farming a Sustainable Bioeconomy, and it highlights the urgent need to transition towards a sustainable circular bioeconomy. And why is this necessary? We all know, we have discussed this during yesterday's discussions already. We need to tackle pollution, biodiversity loss, climate change, and also food and nutrition insecurity. A bio-based economy has the transformative potential because we can harness renewable resources such as those from the green, let's start with the green bioeconomy, forestry and agriculture, and also from aquaculture, so the blue bioeconomy. We can respect the planetary boundaries while fulfilling international goals such as ending hunger, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the Paris Agreement. Yeah, so our today's session aligns with GFFA focus to strengthen innovation and communication as a key driver for this transformation. This session is organized within the realm of the Leibniz Lab Systemic Sustainability, which is a flagship project of the Leibniz Association. This is a leading German research network dedicated to advancing science for the benefit of the society. The lab integrates interdisciplinary research of many Leibniz institutes. Some of you are present today, so thank you for joining. And it aims to understand and address the complex interconnections between the field of action and conflict, biodiversity, climate, agriculture, and food systems. As part of this lab, there's one work package focusing on innovations for sustainability transformation, and it includes to identify innovations and transformation pathways to make this transformation happen. And we also discussed the levers to upscale systemic changes. This work on innovations is led by the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy, ATB, and also the Leibniz Center for Tropical Marine Research. So together they combine research on the blue and green bioeconomy. Today we will explore how we can leverage scientific evidence and data to scale sustainability transformation, encourage collaboration and co-creation, share best practices, and also foster science communication. To set the stage for today's exploration, we will begin with a video message from a panelist who unfortunately could not join us, but luckily she left us with a video message. Then we will have 2 keynote speeches, and then we will move to the panel discussion, and last but not least to the Q&A with you, with your questions of the audience. But before we dive in, let's already hear from you, because during our session we have 6 Slido polls to know more what you think, what your perspectives are, and these should appear soon on the screen. So please take out your phones and follow the instructions on the QR code. Yeah, so thank you for raising your phones. So I guess the results will be there soon, but I mean the first step always takes the longest. All right, so we have an expert audience. Let's wait a couple of minutes or seconds. Okay, this is very dynamic. But I guess we have now more people in the room who are somewhat familiar. So I look very much forward to further discussing this topic with you. Thank you. And now let's move to the second question, which is on what is the primary challenge to adopt sustainable innovations in your field? Please let us know. Okay, I think we have a winner, so to say. The regulatory hurdles seem to be the biggest challenge, followed by resistance to change, which underlines that we all have to be part of this transformation. Lack of funding, lack of awareness. Thank you for participating. So now let's move to the first video message of the panelist who, as I said, unfortunately cannot join us. Her name is Olaide Aderibigbe, and she's the director of Nigeria's National Horticultural Research Institute. She is a nutrition and food processing expert who has made significant contributions to sustainable agriculture, bioeconomy innovations, and particularly in the post-harvest technology and community nutrition sector. So let's hear from Olaide.
Hello, everyone. I am Olaide Aderibigbe. I'm a director of research at the National Horticultural Research Institute in Nigeria, and I'm happy to contribute to this year's conference, talking about key innovations for systemic sustainability. I'm going to highlight 3 main innovations that I have seen and is working. Number 1 is decentralized food system, a food system that is well adapted to a locality, to a region. And then we can produce or develop technologies to support such food systems. And in that way, input is minimal because the crops and animals are well adapted, and we can reduce carbon footprint. We did that in one of our projects where a community produces cocoyam, which is well adapted, and then we develop modularized solar dryer for processing of the cocoyam into flour. We also have technologies such as evaporative cooling chambers for storing agricultural produce. This cooling chambers does not need any energy for production of the cooling system. The second innovation platform is circular economy. That is the conversion of waste to wealth. Horticultural crops are highly perishable, and so the waste from the production, even food waste, can be converted to compost, can be converted to biofuel. The third technology is the use of data, digital agriculture, to support production system. Blockchain technology to facilitate markets. These are technologies that are working. In Nigeria, we are able to connect the big farmers to the small farmers, and they're able to share knowledge. They're able to even make inputs available. Of course, there are challenges. There is a challenge of financing. There is a challenge of low public awareness. There is knowledge deficit. There is policy instability in policy. These challenges are there. How do we address them? One way that I've seen that we can address it and can work is the use of innovation platforms. Innovation platforms that are inclusive at regional level, at national and international level, even as experts in the field. We need this inclusive innovation platform for telling our success stories, for building capacity. And there is also the need for gender mainstreaming into whatever we do, because in developing countries and in Africa, gender really plays a role. Gender mainstreaming into some of the things, the technologies and the policies. We need to engage stakeholders as well. We need to engage the government, the policymakers. We need to engage the stakeholders, connect the stakeholders. And as researchers, as experts in the field, we need to talk to ourselves. We need to share success stories. We need to help ourselves enhance our capacity. And so on the final note, I'm going to leave us with this. Inclusive innovation platform is the right way to go. Thank you and enjoy the conference. Hello, everyone. I am Olai.
Yeah, thank you, Olaide. Sorry that you cannot join. I hope you could watch us from the live stream. So now that we have heard from her, highlighting the 3 key innovation areas, decentralized food systems, circular economy, and also digital agriculture, let's move to our first keynote. It will be delivered by Barbara Sturm. She is the scientific director of the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy. She is also the vice president of the Leibniz Association and holds a professorship for agricultural engineering and bioeconomic systems at the Humboldt University, Berlin. She also is member of the International Committee of Agricultural and Biosystem Engineering, and they're the working group on circular bioeconomy systems. Well, in her keynote, she will share insights into why innovations are essential and how we can make them work. Welcome, Barbara Sturm.
Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to talk to you about this very exciting topic today. As you just heard, we are trying to drive bioeconomy home. So basically, in everything she just said, there is bioeconomy in the title. I am very, very happy that we are actually working together with an institute that is working on blue bioeconomy, so coming really from the marine side of things, because we have this challenge of realizing bioeconomic systems, and in the land-based area, I would say that ATB, together with other institutions we are collaborating, is on a good way. We are understanding where maybe tricky parts are that we need to look into between primary agriculture and then food processing or material processing. As an engineering institute, we are also looking into what technologies do we need for transformation and for transformed systems, because many people still think that the technology is already here for the transformation, and that now AI will help to solve the rest, but that is not the case. All the technology you see is made for mainstream systems today. And we heard about location appropriateness. But if you have, on one hand, location appropriateness, and on the other hand, the need to have economically viable systems, you need to make sure that you develop the technology for that. And in all this context, for a long time, we actually ignored the blue bioeconomy almost completely, other than maybe saying we are doing something on algae, because at some point it was very en vogue, basically, to do something on algae. And I think one of the big strengths of our collaboration in this Leibniz Lab on systemic sustainability is that we are also bringing green and blue bioeconomy together. The reality, in my experience in realization of bioeconomic systems at the moment, is that there are many, many initiatives, and many of them have defined and fully understandably boundary conditions that leaves them with a very limited view on the actual system. And sometimes you will have effects in other parts of the system that you have not included in your considerations. So again, taking a systemic approach will eventually help us to understand knock-on effects, for example, throughout the system, and also the interactions between green and blue bioeconomy. We have heard the expression of circular economy earlier, and we have talked about bioeconomy. What I want to point out here is that bioeconomy in itself is not automatically circular and not automatically sustainable. That is something that we had to learn the hard way in some cases over the last years. And obviously, circular economy is not automatically based on biological resources. And building a sustainable circular bioeconomy is, as a consequence of that, also more than the sum of its parts. We need to understand the interactions. We also need to understand where we can work on the principles of bio-based materials, for example, and where we might need to still, either in a phase out or also in the longer term, have to rely on fossil resources, for example. One very important question is always, when we talk about bioeconomy, are we talking about a global bioeconomy? Are we talking about regional or even local value creation? Or should it actually be a bit of both? And my personal view on this is that it actually needs to be a bit of both. So on the one hand, we need the transfer of technology and knowledge on a more global level, but also material streams. There are just material streams that we cannot realize on a regional basis. But we also need to look into what is possible in terms of local value creation and how can we actually help facilitate that. So in Germany, for example, at the moment, the topic of re-wetting fenlands and using the growth for value-added products is a very big topic. And ATB, as a research institute, is also doing work together with practitioners on the question, what can we do in terms of how are we working on the land, because traditional technology cannot deal with that necessarily, but also what can we actually do with what we get in terms of biomaterials. My last point would be, in this context, what we need is living labs, basically, looking into regional particularities, looking into what is possible in terms of transferring knowledge from one location to another. Coming back to the topic of technology development, to understand how technology of the future needs to look. Where can we actually use digitalization to make sure that we have technology that can be used on different sites and be adapted to the site-specific characteristics by a different control system? Where do we need to think of having modular systems where you have implements for one reality and implements for another? And together with a growing number of partners, we have started and implemented the Leibniz Innovation Farm for Sustainable Bioeconomy, where currently more than 20 Leibniz institutes are involved on a German level, several universities, but also participants from the private sector. Which also allows us to compare different site-specific aspects across Germany. And this makes me really happy, we also have partner initiatives across the world. And we are currently working on building up a network that can, in future, share data together, share experience together, and make sure that we can create technology, but also different approaches to realize a circular bioeconomy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for our first keynote. Now we have another, is my microphone on? Yeah. Now we have another keynote from someone who cannot join us as well, but he sends his dearest apologies. I talk about Benedikt Böse, who will talk about bridging science and practice. So now that we have heard a lot of information about technology and data for bioeconomy, we will hear from someone who puts that into practice by working the land not far from here, like an hour from Berlin. His farm and work is so popular that the farm visits are usually sold out very fast. At least I haven't managed to go. I'm talking about the regenerative organic farm Gut and Böse, and Benedikt Böse also founded the Fink Foundation, Europe's largest private living lab for regenerative agriculture. Yeah, so let's hear from Benedikt. Yeah, there seem to be some issues with the PowerPoint, but yeah, I think we can solve that. That's much better.
We're located 1 hour east of Berlin, as you can see here.
Yeah, also thank you for the technical...
Good afternoon. My name is Benedikt Bösel. I'm the founder of Gut & Bösel, as well as the Fink Foundation. And Gut & Bösel, our farm and forestry operation, together with the Fink Foundation, is forming what we call living lab for regenerative agriculture and forestry. We're located 1 hour east of Berlin, as you can see here in the map. And what we're faced with is incredibly sandy soil and very low precipitation. And of course that has always been a challenge, but it will become even more so a challenge if we look into the future. My life, in the first part of it, I had a first career in the financial industry and then took over the farm in December 2016. And we were already doing what I call industrial agriculture, industrial ecological agriculture since 2004. So we were plowing the field every year, we were only growing monocultures, and I realized, specifically through the first drought that started, that that way that we were farming was actually not going to be, well, I guess in a way good enough for the challenges that we were facing. Our soil organic matter was well below 1%. There was, huge problems with erosion, of course. Just imagine the large fields. Biodiversity was down. So I was looking all over the world for alternative land use systems because I realized we have a problem. And if I want to pass on the farm in 25 years, it needs to be far, far more resilient. So back then, the term of regenerative agriculture or agroecology wasn't as big. So it took me a while to find the first sort of instruments of regenerative agriculture. And once I found them, I knew this is what I want to do because I saw that those pioneers from Brazil, South Africa, America, Germany, wherever, were incredibly successful on a profit note, but also ecologically and socially. And this was for me the way that I knew this is my life's work. Bring that knowledge here and prove that even in our difficult circumstances, these systems yield incredible hope as far as agriculture is concerned. Within the next few slides, I'm going to briefly talk about some of the key instruments that we are applying to then later on start the discussion on the combination and the potential of science and the working farm. So a big part is integrating the cattle into the arable farming. So the cows are outside all year on arable land, so they are completely a part of the crop rotation, and they are strong as far as their potential to increase biomass accumulation, but specifically, of course, photosynthetic capacity is concerned. We're using a holistic grazing method. You can somehow see it on the picture, but they are kept quite close to each other, and we move the cows up to 4 times a day during the summer. In the winter, the cows then go on arable land where we've got cover crops and nurse crops, and where we have harvested the main crop in the summer before. So the cows are an integral part of the farm business and rotate as other crops, so to say, through the farm. A second large impact is through agroforestry. We now have 7 different agroforestry systems on more than 75 hectares. We have a specific focus here on varieties that we can actually harvest, such as plums, pears, apples, but also, for instance, hazelnut and chestnut. And of course, agroforestry holds incredible potential as far as change in the microclimate is concerned. Of course, biodiversity, the whole, keeping the water, let's say, contained in a certain area. Agroforestry is an incredible toolkit, and specifically with the focus of saying, okay, if we have we can add a perennial that we can also harvest in a few years' time. The third part is composting, but also fermentation. We're looking also at foliar sprays, and here always the question is, how can I increase soil health? How can I make sure that the plants are healthy? And composting is really such an incredible, deeply, really, really incredible tool, completely underestimated, sorry. And so that's a very strong part of what we're trying to accomplish. The setup here between the farm on one side and the foundation on the other is that the farm implies different methods through different challenges, and the foundation actually has the potential to monitor exactly what is happening, not only as far as the process is concerned, but also what the data is concerned, etc., etc. And then there is a co-evaluation of the two that will help not only the farm and the farm business, but also the foundation, because it can use that knowledge not only to share it, but also, of course, to analyze it. And in that sense, there is a constant communication and interaction between different people with different knowledges, which is incredibly yielding for both. Here, maybe more specific things that we're looking at is really quite classical as far as soil health is concerned, biodiversity, the microclimate, which of course is important. But we have a specific focus also on the economic side of things, not also, let's say, on the classical analysis of profitability, but we're also trying to look at the ecological, the true ecological and social values that we create through land use, but maybe also the costs. And here is our largest research project, Davasus, where we do exactly that. Through different sensors, we try to monitor different values as such, and also find ways of incorporating them into the true financials of the farm, balance sheet, cash flow statements, and profit and loss account, where we of course have to reflect the true values of what is going on. And maybe a last few points from me. Of course, they are my own stem from my own experience, but I think the most important thing is we don't have the time to get everything right. I think it is more important to get going and to be okay with not knowing everything, as far as what we know is actually beneficial. The second thing is, I think we are thinking too many times in ceteris paribus terms. 1 + 1 is not 2 in the real world outside in ecosystems. So I think it is more important for us to find, let's say, a new characterization which goes more in the idea of having a context-specific, let's say, frame around a certain assumption that we believe to be true. The second part, the next one is independence. I think we need more independent farmers. I also think we need more independent research. And I think we need to create real-life scenarios, because those real-life scenarios are what in the end matter when it comes to implementation, when it comes to evaluation of an instrument and of a potential toolkit. And maybe the last thing, if I was to ask what would your ideal world look like, I would try to develop a network of regional, independent, context-specific real-life farms that are closely intertwined with research institutes and science, that are not constrained by, let's say, a certain funding over a certain time period, but that can work on real-life problems and real-life solutions and become a learning hub for farms that have different contexts around the areas to come there and to observe and learn and see, taste, feel it, to then take that knowledge on their own farms and also adapt. This is what I would want to share. I hope you have a fruitful discussion. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Benedict. So we are glad we still made his participation somehow possible with those video messages. Before we move to the panel discussion, we again want to hear from you. So there will be the second set of Slido polls. So please, again, take out your phones. And for the technicians, please give us the next Slido questions. Thank you. Okay, as the results stabilized a little bit, we can say that you agree, or mostly strongly agree, that co-creation between scientist and practitioner is effective in driving innovation. or agree, which is a positive outlook, I would say, for what we want to achieve. Yeah, and we have a next Slido question. What do you think? What should be prioritized to foster sustainable bioeconomy? All right, so policy support is way up, followed by education and awareness, and then we have technological innovation, to a lesser extent, investment in research and development. All right, thank you. Now let's move to the panel discussion. How can we unlock systemic innovations for sustainable circular bioeconomy? To discuss this question, I would like to ask 4 panelists to the stage. The first one is Susanna Bodach. She is research group leader of the group Integrated Circular Economy Transformation at the International Water Management Institute in Sri Lanka. Thank you for joining us. And you are working specifically on co-creating innovative models for organic waste recovery and wastewater use. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Second, we have Raimund Bleichwitz. He is an expert in global sustainable resources and natural resource governance, with a particular focus on the blue economy. Where you wish. Yeah. And to complement your, what I just said about your achievements, you are scientific director at the Leibniz Center for Tropical Marine Research and a professor at the University of Bremen. And you also co-lead the innovation work within the Leibniz Lab Systemic Sustainability. Thank you. Well, and as our third panelist, I would like to welcome Manix Dorn, who brings a wealth of experience in sustainable agriculture and food production in Latin America. Currently, he leads the German-Argentine dialogue on sustainable agriculture. German-Argentine dialogue on sustainable agricultural innovation, funded by the German Ministry for Food and Agriculture. And you worked across Latin America and Europe, advancing research and practical application in areas such as beekeeping, bioeconomy technology roadmaps, and food sector innovation, if that's correct. Yeah, and last but not least, Fabian Blöchel. He is consultant for arable farming or plant production, renewable resources and environment at the Farmers Union of the state Brandenburg. Please come up the stage as well. Thank you. So Fabian Blöchel really represents the producers, the entrepreneurs, and yeah, as I said, has a focus on plant production, also works together with ATB on scaling best practices and finding best practices for plant production. Yeah, thank you all for joining our panel. And the panel will be structured in 3 clusters. And the first cluster of questions will be on innovation and what makes them fail, what makes them work, and also how we can create an enabling environment for this. And I would like to start with Raimund to give us his thoughts on those questions.
Magic, does it work better this way? It does. So thanks a lot for inviting me and thanks a lot for being here. The question is about innovation, right? And my short answer is look at the marine side of life. We know that fish stocks are at risk, of course, but it would be entirely misleading to overlook three quarters of our planet. So there's a lot that can still be taken and used in a sustainable manner. We at our institute, ZMT, we have experimented a bit with jellyfish. And you may immediately think how tasty this must be, right? So jellyfish has advantages in growing under difficult environments. It has certain ingredients, nutrients that make it really interesting. Plus, indeed, there is a whole set of algae, of seaweed. We are testing with sea grapes that taste a little bit like caviar. So there's a lot beyond the typical fish. And then indeed, there's a whole family of aquaculture in a sustainable way, the multi-trophic integrated aquacultural farming, where the ideas that Barbara and others have on a circular bioeconomy can really work. We do some experiments with coffee waste in a way that would act as feedstock for aquaculture. There's a lot more. So there's a lot where I would say on the sort of micro level and in the understanding that we just have learned of regional networks collaborating, there's something that really could be taken into account and supported. But indeed, the wider picture is, and that is also one of the reasons that we learn about like fish and fish stocks, is that we need to take into account the ecosystems. So there's just no way of polluting the ocean more and more, and then are somehow believing that we could take more out. So the synergy then is with like a better ocean ecosystems, we can also manage better. And there's one species here in a way, mangroves, those forest systems at coastlines that are really super interesting as a case of systemic enabler. They help a lot with biodiversity. They are sometimes called a carbon superpower because they could store carbon. So what if climate investments go into mangroves? They do have a side effect on the biodiversity and the ability of local small-scale artisanal fishery to do some harvesting there. So we could have some more international finance going into those areas. So that would be something where we could have a discussion. But if I may, one more point on the energy side, and that's more on the policy instruments that people choose here as being so highly interesting. What did we learn from the energy transition? The policy enabler, in my view, has been feed-in tariffs. And the way it worked there is that feed-in tariffs could guarantee a stable finance to suppliers, thereby making renewable energy cooperatives great again in a way, if I may say so. Plus, indeed, they came with an obligation for energy utilities to purchase green electricity. That was a strong legal and financial incentive indeed. So the equivalence here would be to have the grocery stores being obliged to purchase what is offered by, say, small-scale artisanal fishery, the sea grape farmers, seaweed farmers. You think, oh, wait a moment, that's going to be difficult. Of course it is. But just thinking it has worked in the energy space, we now have a share of 50% renewable electricity in our system here in Germany. And like 10, 20 years ago, most people would have said, look, you're foolish. So there is really something to learn from other innovation areas, how the upscaling could work in a combination of policy, finance, regulatory tools, such as feed-in systems. I could stop here, but definitely look forward to other contributions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for those first impression on your thoughts on what are key innovations and also tasty innovations, and what makes them successful and how we can better learn from each other. Now I would like to hand over to Fabian Blöchel and to hear, what do you think? What are key innovations, especially working with the entrepreneurs in Brandenburg, here around Berlin, and what innovations were successful and why? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I work for the Brandenburg Farmer Union, so yeah, this is the association where the Brandenburg farmers are members, and yeah, one of the key driver is, of course, the climate adaptation to climate change, and yeah, to make the crop rotation more resistant through yeah, for the dry climate, and especially the to have a safe feed production for the when there will be the next hot summer. So that is one of the largest fields what we grow now. So we see increasing growing of alfalfa. This is, I think, one of the fastest adaptation to our arable farmers, so that we have a secure feed production in the summer, so when there will be the next drought coming, and yeah, that will be like one example from the arable, from the farming side. Yeah, of course there are other things, and we are very happy also to have a cooperation with the ATB. So we gathered farmers and yeah, having all through our Brandenburg land. So this is one of the federal states. Of course, different farms where we show also best practices. So yeah, best practices examples. And this is made possible also by the BMEL, by a project financed out of the BMEL, this innovativer Pflanzenbau. So we are very happy to also to show innovations yeah, on the farms. And yeah, you're happy invited to check our website on the Landesbauernverband. And yeah, if you're interested, then yeah, very welcome.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspectives and also telling us a little bit about how farmers here in the area adapt to climate change and therefore make use of innovations such as other crops that are planted now. Yeah, and now I would like to pass the voice to you, Susanne. And yeah, what do you think? What are key innovations you're working with? What makes them fail? What makes them work?
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, thank you for inviting me on short notice to this panel. That's why I'm not appearing there in the list of panelists. But happy to be there and share from our experience as a research for development organization, what we are, International Water Management Institute. We work globally, especially in the Global South. That's our mission. And what we see actually is a lot of innovators on the ground, yeah. There in countries like Ghana, in Kenya, in Sri Lanka, in Pakistan, in India, right? And I always say there's not one solution to a problem, right? So also when we talk around this big topic of circular bioeconomy and this transition towards such a bioeconomy, there's not one solution, but what's important that the solution is adapted. And what I'm promoting, and we as a group also promote, is this co-creation. And I think that's our responsibility as researchers also to bridge this gap and find together in this co-creation process adapted localized solutions, technologies, innovations, but they can be very simple. I mean, we supported women groups in Kenya to produce full bricks, yeah, for cooking and commercialize them based on manure, on animal waste, right? So, but it can be also such interesting solutions that we found conducting an innovation challenge in Colombia, like people that from the university there that try to find bioplastics out of and develop more packaging material based on bio waste, yeah, for this big challenge of packaging and the negative environmental impact of plastic packaging. So I think there's not one solution, and important is it's locally adapted, and therefore I'm would say this co-creation is very interesting, important. And secondly, it was already mentioned, and a very good example that I would like to connect from the energy transition, right? Yeah, we have to pay somehow those also businesses, and we found this when we analyzed it, to pay back in the energy sector, electricity sector, is what the feed-in tariff that can be found now also not only in Germany, all over the world, right? We exported this policy innovation. But we found, for example, analyzing the clean development mechanism, a climate financing mechanism under the Kyoto Protocol, one of the first ones. There are quite a few of also bioeconomy technology that got financing through this. And we found innovations. If you mitigate climate change, carbon capture can be an additional value for your business. Yeah. So, but this needs a lot of capacity building on the ground. Also, entrepreneurs need to know how I calculate even my carbon, right? They need to get this certification, etc. So, and there's still a long way to go as these climate financing instruments now under the Article 6 and others develop further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And sharing your experiences that innovations and solutions must be adapted to locally and yeah, also created by co-creation, that those things help to make it successful. Speaking of locally adapted, now I would like to pass the voice to Manix. Could you please share your experiences on key innovations for systemic bioeconomy in Latin America?
Well, Latin America is, of course, is a big word. Now people talk about Africa, Latin America. I think what I've seen in the years that I've been there, if you talk about innovation, I was really happy to see the presentation from Leibniz and talking about how do you scale up. On the other side, the reaction of the public, I was really surprised. That everybody thinks that the government will provide innovation because everybody said we need public policy. Maybe sometimes public policy kills more than we actually admit. So I think for what I've seen in Latin America is that you have tremendously productive scientific sector. You have a lot of startups. And we now have established with various institutions in the bioeconomy network in Latin America. What you see, there is fantastic science. There are fantastic entrepreneurs that come up often with what they call innovations, since they don't have sufficient information, so you see a lot of recycling of ideas. And then you come to the gap, which is generally existing in Latin America. If you want to have innovation, you need human resources, you need new knowledge, and you need technological infrastructure. So that was why I was so happy for you presenting these pilot farms. And I think if you talk about innovations, you see a lot. But first of all, if there is no private sector who takes it up, it's not going to work. And if the government doesn't provide the pillars, they don't have to do the innovation. They need to provide the infrastructure to be able to do the innovation, and so that the entrepreneurs can really innovate and not repeat, not make the same errors. And I think that's one of the challenges we see in Latin America. And well, within the project, the German-Argentine dialogue is exactly the reason why we're setting up a pilot farm, and happy that with Leibniz we already had Anja Hansen, and we are discussing how we can learn from each other. So I think there is a lot of connection. I mean, there is a lot of knowledge in the world, but if you want to innovate, you need to connect. You need to gain time. And everybody talks about bioeconomy, and I always hear a lot about bio and little about economy. So maybe to be really innovative, we need to invite some more economists to the table.
Thank you, Manix. This is, of course, what I like to hear as an agricultural economist. So we are ready. Yeah, thank you for sharing your experiences on this first question on the role of innovation and what makes them fail and succeed. And now I would like to move to our second set of questions, which is on how to better engage the stakeholders. So how can we better engage farmers, producers, policymakers, consumers, and others to really create this bioeconomy transition? And maybe what very practical steps can we already take to make this easier? to also have a bidirectional or even multi-directional exchange and creation. Yeah, and I would like to give the voice to Mr. Blöchel to maybe share some thoughts, yeah, from the region around Berlin, what is happening there.
Yeah, 2 times a year we organize our association organize itself a field a field day to show interesting and new crops which grow very well in Brandenburg. So with our low rainfall, and this. Always after this field day, we ask, the farmers, you're interested in growing this, new crops and tough and all this interesting crops which are on the bioeconomy sector or which are interesting, but they tell us, there's no market for this. So of course I can grow it, but who will buy this new crops? Of course, alfalfa is a different thing because for the livestock it's that's integrated in the farm. But what you also said, there need to be a market first. I think there need to be a market for the farmer that he has the economic advantage on his farm, or has some other profit, get some profit out of this. That we always have is always our conclusion after this field day, and but. For our farmers, it's also important to have just an open room to talk about innovations, and therefore I come back to our project what we have with the ATB, just to invite the farmers and to think about, or just bring the farmers together and let them talk about their innovations on the soil. For example, we have a very very innovative group on farmers who go more and more to no tillage, and we have with the ATB a room there to bring them together and also to invest in the machine. So into this project there be also giving money from the state in this case, and to experiment with this new tillage machine. It's called a strip till machine, and so to bring this innovation on the field, and then. Then in the autumn we invite the farmers and show the first results, and this is the way how we carry on with our climate conditions here, and this is one example.
Thank you so much. Now, Raimund, in the blue economy or bioeconomy, what are your ideas on how to better integrate all the stakeholders and create co-creation?
Thanks, Sophia. Co-creation matters, and it needs to live. Sometimes scientists believe they have the sort of big plan, and sometimes you meet consultants who believe they have a big plan, or policymakers or others. What definitely matters is to speak with people on the ground. In our case, it's coastal communities and fishery people, and then indeed translate ideas about goals that you may have into benefits and goals that matter for them. So who can reap the benefits of trying to translate currencies into what matters there? That is one of the keys. So the co-development with people there about multiple goals eventually, and not just one unit, which could be CO2 or biodiversity. No, it needs to matter in livelihood terms. And that indeed is also then related to local income, not in 5 or 10 years from now on, but possibly in the next year. Kind of a local return on investment, if you wish. So that matters. We have experience, and we work indeed with coastal communities. Sometimes we also work with indigenous communities. So there is really an element of also then bringing anthropology in, that you need to spend some time there before you start raising the questions. That is something that some people are unused with. So it's not just, say, technology, but really living with them. What then matters, I would say, is really trying to establish a 5 or 10 years perspective. So you might be doing some scenarios. So really see where a perspective could be together, if it is developed well. And what I would also think matters when we speak about topical communities, people out there, is a good relation in social media, so that the final consumers or the final consumers in 3 or 5 years could have a direct contact with the people there. And there, I'm really interested in the sort of bridging the regulatory gap, because if we wanted to bring something in the market here, typically you need a permission, and that may take some time in Germany. 2 years, 3 years, we all probably know what we are talking about. So really having like a good collaboration, or like the magic sea grape, that could grow in Vietnam or in other countries. That's what we are doing there. And then have the experience from consumers there. It is probably not acknowledged by the authorities here, what is realized there, but I would believe that the sort of intercultural learning, inter-jurisdictional learning is also something that could help upscaling innovation. And the sort of living experience from communities in other parts of the world to then potentially speed up the obtaining a permission process here. To me, that is also part of what we can potentially do, not just in, say, co-creating across scale, but also potentially in our living lab together with ATB and others here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Manix, what do you think about how to better engage stakeholders?
I think it was interesting to see the bioeconomy map of the world. There's one of the countries I lived for a long time, Chile, which was not on there. And I think they are a really interesting case. Chile defined around 2013 that they were producing in the agriculture sector, in the bioeconomy, a little bit of salmon, a little bit of grapes. They had some saying, well, we need to diversify. So we want to make a more complex matrix of our bioeconomy. So they made a strategy. Spanish consultants came in, wrote something really beautiful, and then they did something I think I've never seen before. And I was involved, and it was really interesting. We brought it back to a regional level. And we said, okay, if this is the aim, and this is a regional potential, and this is the strategy, how do we translate it into technology? So do the universities actually have the knowledge and the people? And we found out in one region, which is agro-industrial, that they only had agriculture engineers. So how do you want, ever seen an agriculture engineer in a food plant? I'm an agriculture engineer, I'll break down the place. Yeah? And then you come up with these questions. And then what kind of infrastructure do you need? Because you can have innovation, but if you don't have a food pilot plan to help people to scale up what they actually need to do to lower risk of technology, it's not gonna work. And then to end that, there was made an investment plan, public and private. So the public and the private sector committed resources. And that has survived by now 5 governments from left to right and created sustainability. So the private sector is there. And coming to another extreme example, during COVID, I did a lovely project on Bioeconomy and the opportunities in the Caribbean. Of course, the original idea was to go to the Bahamas and to Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. Well, I did it all from behind my screen. Then, when we were in that process, there was one consultancy of the World Bank, one of the IDB, one of the Caribbean Economic Zone. Then there were 5 reports before that, and all said there's a lot of sargassum, and it floats in from the ocean, it goes around, it provokes $50 million damage to the tourism industry. And then most of the conclusions was, no, but to process it, you need to build a pilot plant, and that's too expensive. 50 million in consultancies, I estimate, between all the bilateral. The consultants earned a lot of money. The tourism sector complains and keeps paying 50 million in damages on the beaches and everything, and nothing happens. Well, the sargassum comes in, goes on the beach, floats, and goes back to sea. So when you see that you don't have a private initiative in a private sector, and the public policies don't go to facilitate, not to do it, but to create the conditions to be able, then you have a problem. I think 2 contrasting ideas of the same sector.
Thank you so much to share also, so the opposite of a best practice, probably. This is also part of this, lots of money. Yeah, the return on investment, debatable. Okay. Susanne, now over to you. How do you think we can better make co-creation happen?
Here was mentioned this innovation farm or the living labs. Actually, we work on something very similar. We established in several countries so-called circular bioeconomy innovation hubs. One of them in Ghana, where we since long time work with different actors of waste to value. Companies like composting, but also waste collector, bioenergy companies, but also research institutes, also the university. Also involved is the ministry. We established this so-called multi-stakeholder platform to bring those together and work towards also establishing a kind of living lab with the facility that they have over there. Yeah? We have to say we have long tradition there. We also supported a public-private partnership. That means investment in a co-composting facility where now they produce a certified organic fertilizer. Those facilities can work at living labs, and also this gap, bridging the gap between science and then practitioner is very important to find adapted solution, but also to build capacities. We invite there also people to get trained, and PhD students do their pilots there, etc. We have done something similar in India as well, and in Vietnam. But sometimes we don't, of course, we don't do it only on our own. In Vietnam, we partnered with UNDP, who have established a circular economy hub, and we're missing this bioeconomy part and focusing more on the other parts of the circular economy challenges. But another example I want to draw is from that we as researchers now get involved also in innovation challenges and accelerator programs. Also there we partner with professionals like from Impact Hub or other specialized organizations that conduct acceleration programs. We did one in Colombia, a very nice example where we, after the call was really specific on circular economy, and we got 300 applications from Colombia and other countries in the region, and 20 of them participated then in our boot camps, and 10 of the winning teams now are going through a 6 months acceleration programs, where also our scientists from our group are involved in mentoring those companies, and very innovative solutions come there. And often those startups, small scale SMEs, they don't have the access to science or to such experts, or they cannot even pay, right? Compared maybe to big corporates who work on these topics. And the last thing I want to mention is also not to forget to be inclusive in scaling. Yeah, this is very, very important, and sometimes forgetting. It's on the technology part, but also in who do you involve, right? I mentioned already this example of women-led initiatives in the sector. Yeah, but also about looking into how innovations also affect a gender. Who is using them? Is there some negative impact? Do we consider gender equality and social inclusion there? Shall we target also specific groups when we do, for example, such programs like accelerator programs or other kind of interventions? I think that's very important. And we are, as a research institute, for example, we have our own research group on gender equality and social inclusion, and launched a JC strategy last year, where we want also more intentionally integrate gender equality and social inclusion subjects in all our research groups. So I think to summarize it, I think it's very important to bring to bring the stakeholders together. Innovation hubs or living labs can help, so also they can serve as a platform to exchange a common learning and a co-creation of innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and now due to time, I would like to hand the voice to you, the audience. In case you have questions, please raise your hand or go to one of the, well, there's one standing microphone and there will be also one going around. So we are looking forward to any questions you have. If you want to direct them to a specific panelist, please tell us. Yeah, at the back. Thank you for spotting it.
Thank you. I was just missing one very important stakeholder, which are corporates, or at the end some of the big companies that could be the driver, or they are driven our fossil-based economy, and they will be the buyers of the bio-based materials or ingredients. So my question is, like, how are you considering this? In this panorama of stakeholder exchange, and also in order to overcome these market challenges, because this extreme focus, at least in Europe, in terms of innovation, R&D, I think there is enough finance for this side, but once we have innovations, there is this valley of debt where all the startups are dying just because they don't find their way on the market. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and your question. Does one of the panelists feel like answering? Or go ahead.
I could try, and then indeed there might be some additional remark. Absolutely right. Other large corporations are important, and in the food industry we do have large corporations, so they need to be on board one way or another. My impression from how they have been performed by and large is very mixed. We do have, say, bad experience with automotive industry and with like oil-based fossil fuel companies by and large. So they have been lobbying against many information to come on stream. It's now interesting to see how global food packaging industry is trying to change, offering to change. We still have to wait and see how they really deliver on reducing marine plastic litter, for instance. Big pledges, quite promising, still they need to be delivered. So I would be slightly cautious and would probably expect some monitoring mechanisms like Global Food Watch and others, that they really put some gentle pressure on those companies to really change. Maybe also some innovator to shake them up from the outside. But we also have seen some energy utilities changing, like Enel in Italy. They have set up a crowdsourcing platform. So there is cautious space for hope, in particular if there are those drivers and pressure from the outside. My quick take. So Marnix.
Now it does. I think it's overly estimated how innovative big companies are. If you look at the big German 3, BAS and Bayer, and we just were with a group of Uruguayans and Argentinians in Germany to look at the development of bio inputs, we call it in Spanish. It's kind of bio pesticides and herbicides and biofertilizers. What you see in these companies, they depend on startups, and they're looking for their innovation, and they invest millions in buying new startups and trying to get innovative people in that world, because it's another product. So I think that's one thing. They have a lot of capital, but don't overestimate the capacity of a big company to be sufficiently creative to innovate. I think that needs to be bottom up. They need to be there, and they have a lot of money. They can help in research. I mean, the best research projects in my life I've done were financed by Bayer. I must recognize it. You can do things that the state never will provide. But I think don't overestimate that. I think you need ground-up startups, and that needs to have the right policy so that these startups actually can do what they want to do. And then the valley of death, I think that's the nice thing of the German innovation systems, that you have institutes like, well, we're now talking Leibniz, a little bit further to the market, Fraunhofers, who have actually capacity to help that kind of companies to go to market and also to evaluate their technology. And I think that's something, for example, that's lacking in Latin America. So that I think Germany is, in that sense, quite well equipped in the innovation ecosystem.
I would like to add this policy environment and a bit this kind of stick and carrot, what you were referring to. And I think the European Green Deal will give some indication. I mean, in the area of climate action, we have seen this already. There are science-based targets, and many big companies have now joined science-based targets. They have these renewable energy goals and even net zero waste goals, right? So it's now the question in also the context of ESG reporting and those requirements, how far also, for example, other goals like biodiversity goals or bioeconomy linked goals will be they are also integrated, and companies will also start to commit on this, yeah. But I think what I've seen also when it comes to climate action, there's already this dropping down about a kind of awareness of big corporates that have a global value chain. I have to bring those value chain down, yeah. I have to greenen my value chain up to the last farmer where I maybe get the cacao from, or the coffee or whatever, yeah. So I hope this will also give a kind of push or incentive. We can see it also from this side. And I've seen, especially when it comes to energy transition, I mean, global corporates can also have a good impact and positive impact in the global south, where they are maybe entering as a very big player, right? So going towards also more maybe these examples from the energy sector, but we will see how those companies really commit to those targets and bring them also into implementation.
You have one addition? Oh, no.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the program 2030. Of course, leading a dialogue with Argentina at this moment with a liberal economist at the head. It's an interesting remark. But we just discussed it this morning. You talk about no tillage. I'm talking about economic theory. And I think bioeconomy, we shouldn't forget about economic theory. It really works. And if you try to distort economy, things go wrong. In Argentina, since 25 years, there's no tillage. They don't talk about cover crops, they talk about surface crops. In Germany, they still think a cover crop is a cost. In Argentina, they valorize it. There has not been any subsidy from the government. It was initialized by the private sector because there was a need to be more sustainable and more efficient. And then the researchers started doing it. There's a whole industry of machines, 25 years of experience. So sometimes, as a European, and when you look back, you think, maybe if European farmers would be pressed to actually compete a little bit more, the pressure, 60% tax is paid by Argentinian farmers. They don't receive any subsidy. Yeah? So sometimes the market pressures companies to innovate and to change for the better.
Thank you.
I know this was
a tough one, the invisible hand.
Raising the discussion.
Thank you for answering the question. I think I saw two questions in the room, right, from Philipp Grundmann, and then in the back. Maybe we can collect those two, and then we need a very elevator pitch-like answer from you.
Hello, my name is Veronika Chvátalová and my background is in environmental studies, and I'd like to hear more on stakeholder engagement. As myself, I was responsible for this in my previous job in the Czech Republic, to try to engage farmers and local environmentalists and local municipalities. And as I'm transitioning to this field in Germany, I would like to hear the experiences here. Yeah, if you could add some tips for engaging stakeholders. Thank you.
And you had a question, right? Yeah? Oh, no, I don't want to pressure.
Thank you. Philipp Grundmann, ITB. Actually, it's very much related to this question, also a discussion. Maybe more pinpointed towards, let's say, the great big elephant in the room no one is talking about, or we are shy to talk about, and that's about the role of power in this. We saw in one of the Slidos that most of us agree that co-creation is very important. From my experience, very often this is successful also when this question of power is between the players, engaging there is sorted out, and I would maybe like to hear if you have any experiences on what kind of maybe governance models or business models could help with this.
Thank you for your questions. So, dear panelists, any comments, thoughts on the two questions from the audience?
Maybe two quick words here. One is agenda setting, and the other one is convening power. And with agenda setting, I would think it comes to the issue raising ability, which could be done through like media or like stakeholders articulating a particular concern, and it could be like water pollution and what agriculture has to do with it. And then indeed you need someone with a convening power. Maybe that relates a little bit to it, but that would be more someone who could come up with an irresistible invitation, and that could be a credible policy maker from the local area, so someone who is considered to be able to moderate and chair a discussion rather than dictating, you have to come. So not necessarily the one who would say, look, I have a subsidy that I could offer if, not the sort of conditionality, but convening power more meant as someone who has a certain authority, and it could be content, it could be like soft regulatory power. So I would think here more of a local governmental agency rather than ATB or ZMT. But maybe we could do it all. Also, not all.
Maybe adding to this, I mean, when we do involvement of our partners and stakeholders and its co-creation, I mean, we involve always our social scientists. They know better than us. First of all, and gender plays a very important role, and also power differences, depending on what kind of interaction you do. No? When we talk with the community, also we work through community organizations, often local NGO that are there in the local communities, working with the farmers since long time, and also have this this trust, right? So it's not ourselves that we go there. When it comes to convening power, of course, we work also with government agencies as partners in the partner countries in the global south, and there the convening power should be with the partner. If the issue is something that is of their importance, they are the ones inviting. But yeah, also within, especially national government, regional government, and local government, there is often some power dynamics that you should always consider when you do this, and maybe have a different series of interactions where you have, of a national level, of course, you invite the provinces, but maybe at one point you have to go to the provincial or local level and invite there the respective institution without the national government being there and looking at them. Yeah. So I agree to what you say. In regard to the question around the German context, I'm German, but I cannot answer because maybe I would then give back to our gentleman here that from the region that can really highlight maybe some experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, to involve the big players like the industry companies, this is very hard in the East because if you look here, we have a lot of farmers, but the agro-industry, that was also a question. This is located in the south, in the west, BASF and Bayer and so on. This is there are very few companies here. They have, of course, their representatives here in Berlin, but also the industry, the strong chemical and machinery industry, this is not here in the east of Germany. Unfortunately, we have a good research institutes, but we still have place for some companies who like machinery producers or chemical producers. Yeah, that's still place in Brandenburg. And to involve the farmers, you need to have the trust, of course. If there's coming up, I get during the week a lot of emails from good ideas, like you want to share this innovative ideas, and I can click through them and look, and they are which I then give further to the farmers has to be relevant through their company. Is it relevant for this entrepreneur to have this innovation or not? And then I come up through a very little questions, very little emails, which I then really get forward. And there needs to be the market relevant for the farmer and for his company. And and of course to get involved, have a relevant question and. Invite the farmers is also a good possibility because they're very curious, always are very curious about things, and but then you have to look what for innovation you want to talk about or what you want to carry on.
Thank you so much. So there's one question in the back. It must be a really quick question and a really quick answer. So because I don't want anyone to lose trains or
yeah. Hello, I'm Lillian Beck. I'm from University of Hohenheim, a scientist facilitating or doing research, acting research on facilitating innovation processes among small-scale farmers on agroforestry. And so my question is now. We talked about co-creation and that farmers need to be innovators and integrated also as innovators. And my question is then, when we also say, okay, the private sector needs to come in to support these innovations to mainstream them, they perceive farmers more as a consumer. So how can we establish a relationship between this private sector and farmers, where farmers are still perceived as innovators and also have kind of, for example, a copyright on innovation which are developed and are not perceived as consumers?
Thank you. If you like to answer, it would be great if you do it in like 3 sentences. That's a challenge of the day.
I had some points to the consumers because I think it's very important. There's still a research gap also when it comes to consumers, really to understand also what drives decision making towards more sustainable consumer behavior, for example, choice of products and so on. No? So I think we need still to learn, because also these drivers for behavior change are very local and it's very difficult to transform from one to the other. I had the opportunity to be involved in one research project where we had then in our very technical team around these technologies, and even we had economists and whatever, but we had an environmental psychologist in our team, right? They did this studies, very complicated study, survey in Cambodia, the consumer there in Phnom Penh, and to understand what are their values and what kind of values trigger actually behavior change. I think, and me personally, and I want to do more work around that, to look into what are really, how can we drive behavior change and motivate consumers. But often it's also about the market, what you have seen already, if the product has the market. But we see this on waste-to-value products that, for example, in bio-waste management, often it's about waste management, not about getting a great fertilizer and market it. Often also composting company, they have not much capacity. That's what you have seen on the ground, how to market. Or they might need market experts or marketing people to get the strategy out and find a market. But sometimes also there are regulatory limitations. For example, in many countries still chemical fertilizer is subsidized. So how you can find your market with an organic fertilizer, right? Or so this in short, in more than 3 sentences, sorry.
Thank you. Raimund, you have the last words of our panel.
Not sure, but let us really talk about the consumers here. Shaming and penalizing and finger pointing is very unlikely to help. So it's much better to connect with things that matter, like healthy lifestyles, health in particular. But then indeed there are people who just love their unhealthy lifestyle. But we can probably learn a bit from the food influencers. Probably most people have been made aware of this sort of Dubai chocolate thing. Then all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, Dubai chocolate appeared and it became magic. Why? Because some TikTok influencer propagated it. And then it was there. So probably a combination of health and then really some marketing with food influencing people.
20 euros a bar.
So you did it. So 20 euros, yeah, I paid 11. So I was just curious. So those sort of things might also help.
All right, thank you. So with this, I have to close the panel. I mean, everyone is welcome to continue the discussion outside after our panel discussion here. So thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure. I think we all learned a lot and got good insights on what you're doing and what your experiences are. So thank you very much. And with this, I would also like to close our session today. We have, of course, 2 more Slido questions. So please take out, again, your phones, if you haven't done so far. We want to keep you active, you know. So our first question is, what is the biggest takeaway from today's discussion? And you can type in, be brief, but we would like to hear from you. Let's see if people are still willing, if you're still in work mode or already in the weekend. Yeah, more systemic approach. We should convene power, so this power balance and also this awareness of different power is important. 8 participants are typing. Market, okay, we heard a lot about economy, incentives. Pretty clueless. Okay, we are not going to save. Yeah, so the economy comes again. We should learn from each other, co-create. And we need more economy in the bioeconomy. I mean, we also heard that we need more more biological focus. One solution does not fit everything. I mean, it would be quite easy if that would, then we wouldn't sit here, I think. Yeah, we should engage stakeholders, need time, we already heard it, especially to build trust probably, right? With local communities to discuss further on what is needed. All right, so thank you everyone for being here. Oh, I think we have a last Slido question, no? Okay, sorry, I forgot about this one. Yeah, let's move to the next one, thank you. What would motivate you to contribute to innovation in the bioeconomy? I mean, one participant also wrote that there is, so to say, no help, that the people sitting here won't solve the issues, but now it's about how we can solve it. Financial incentives are important, and also the impact on society. Okay, those are the 2, mostly.
We're going
The liberal or the social economist? This is a question. Okay, next time we do a panel on economy, I think. Okay, this is then for next year's GFFA. So I hope you enjoyed this year's GFFA. You had great discussions. Thank you again for joining our panel. I think I learned a lot, got a lot of insights, and now I hope you enjoy Friday evening and your weekend. Thank you very much.